Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 85 of Confessions of a Market Maker. I'm your co-host, Ray, aka All Day Ray, aka the Superman Lover. And I'm joined here by my nefarious co-host, former market maker, 20 years, and current day retail trader, the man with an illustrious career on the now legendary House Street. So like a chick with a nice butt, you could say his best work is behind him. Dropping so many jewels, you could have swore he was careless. The gorilla of House Street, JJ.
Brother, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. Very good, man. And I'm pumped. Our guest, world-class daily fantasy sports player and sports bettor, co-founder of Establish the Run, a premium football and analysis site, my own personal favorite podcaster, and he's certainly the best in the fantasy sports and betting genre. You know him as the owner to the most beautiful beast in the world. You may know him as the idol of virgins all across the globe. Mr.Skin the Fur, GPP bro, Adam Levitan. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for that intro, man. Appreciate it. And yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome, Adam. I'm thinking, like, as I'm like saying the intro, I might have indicted myself. I'm saying you're my favorite podcaster, and then also saying you're the idol of virgins all across the globe. JJ, I might need you to vouch for me here, man, that I actually talk to women.
Oh, he does. Indeed, he does. And gets into a lot of trouble, I might add. Yeah.
Maybe I might be like 0.5% of listeners. That's not, but no, it's awesome, Adam. You know, I think I've been like a regular listener around like 2018 or so. I know you've been podcasting for a while, man. Like how far back does it date for you?
Yeah, well, I guess the first like kind of big serious podcast we did, I was hired as like an independent contractor basis to do a podcast for DraftKings in 2015 when they were really going after FanDuel and trying to get to the top of the DFS space. And so me and Peter Jennings and Al Zeidenfeld had a podcast where we talked about DFS and I did the solo where I talked about, kind of first started just talking mostly about sports and DFS and stuff. Then I realized that was kind of boring. And so started talking about life and trying to be funny and stuff like that. And so that kind of took on a life of its own there. So yeah, since 2015, I would say I've been doing the podcast thing pretty seriously, and honestly, it's probably my favorite thing to do. You know, I write a lot, and I obviously manage the business, and I play a lot, but doing the podcast is probably my favorite thing to do. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, man. It's a great listen to it, not just for becoming sharper, but the humor too, and it's just a great blend. It's like a lifestyle type of podcast, which even take it back to Joe Ingram, I used to love his as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so just a reminder to the listeners, you guys would like to join and support collaborative group of traders, you can join JJ and myself at microefutures.com. Before we dive into your background for a second, Adam, you fired off a 25K buy-in at the WSOP last week. It didn't go well, but thus is the nature of poker tournaments. You don't play much poker anymore. What would possess you to drop 25K on a tournament other than hashtag how rich?
Yeah. So I don't get it in bad, like knowingly ever. I mean, I get it in bad all the time. And I'm going to talk about this on the solo pod. Actually, I get it in bad all the time, but not knowingly. Right. But I was knowingly getting it in bad here because I don't, play that poker anymore. I don't study that much poker anymore. And the guys that are in the 25K, I mean, they're spending most of their time studying solver outputs and kind of these range spots where you get 50 big blinds and under and 75 big blinds and under. It's very clear what the right answer is now.
Right.
Very, very clear what the right answer is. And I just, was way far behind. So I got it in bad, but, I had played the main event a bunch of times. I've played a ton of, smaller tournaments and I really enjoy playing live poker a lot. And I think that like my style, which was more of a 2006 to 2010 style when I was really playing a lot of poker, I thought maybe that would give them some problems. So I thought I was maybe, only getting it in, at 0.9 or 0.85 or something like that, not that big of a dog.
Yeah.
And honestly, after playing, like, I don't really think I was that much worse than 0.9 or 0.85. And yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate to have a lot of success. And so spending 25K to get it in a little bit bad for a cool experience and not that big of a dog to make a deep run and have some fun along the way. I thought it was worth it. And, in hindsight, the structure wasn't great for me. We were playing short pretty much the whole time. And like I said, those ranges are pretty well known by all the best players, what you should be doing. And I'm so glad I played though, so it was a good experience for sure.
Yeah. Especially like the smaller the stat, the stacks are, it's a much more clear cut. How much prep did you do? Any prep going into this? You study run any sims beforehand or?
No, I decided I was going to do this like 2 weeks before the tournament. And I figured like trying to study the sims and the solver outputs in a 2-week span was just going to mess me up. So I went in there and just said I was going to play from the streets, the 2006 style where, if they check to me, I'm betting. If they 3-bet, I'm 4-betting. If they 4-bet, I'm 5-betting, so, just try to play as aggressively as possible. Like we used to do back in the day. And these days, nobody plays like that anymore. I mean, everybody is checking back and playing so much calmer than we used to. It's honestly not as fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's all about equilibrium now and not being exploited. I like that. Take it back to the streets. Take it back to the hell yeah. So for those unfamiliar with you, Adam, can you just give us a brief rundown on how you got started in the fantasy football industry?
Yeah, I always thought I was going to be a newspaper reporter, a beat reporter. I grew up in the DC area and I used to read the Washington Post sports section every day. I thought I was going to be, Tony Kornheiser or Mike Wilbon before they became like TV people. They covered sports. I mean, they wrote articles about sports and then they had a column about sports. And back in that time, there was, I didn't have a cell phone. There was no cell phone, not even close. I grew up in the 90s. And so, yeah, I always thought I was going to do that. And I went to school for journalism. I was lucky enough to win ESPN's overall championship. Like, of everybody who played ESPN fantasy football in the year 2000, I got first place. And so that gave me like a little bit of credibility to start writing some fantasy stuff. Was fortunate enough to start writing some fantasy articles for a small free newspaper called the Metro. And then from there, I applied for a job with Roto World, which back in the 2005, 2006, 2007 time was the biggest fantasy football website. And so I, after back and forth in 6 months, I got like a part-time job at Roto World and things just kind of snowballed from there. And that's how I kind of got into it. And everything changed when DFS happened. We can talk about that if you want, but yeah, that's kind of how it got started.
Yeah. That's exactly what I want to talk about. Like, so you're doing that. You're working at Roto World, and then DFS pops up. I believe you were playing poker as well, right? Like, so was this like a moment where it's kind of like you knew right away, like, this is something I want to be on?
So yeah, I mean, the reason I moved to Philadelphia was so I could be close to Atlantic City, and this was in 2004. I mean, at the time, the only place to play poker really for like any real stakes was like maybe Foxwoods, Borgata, and Vegas. Like, that was it. There was no like parks in Philly. There wasn't a casino every 2 feet with its own card room. I mean, everybody was at Borgata at that time, and the games were obviously incredible. And so yeah, I was living at Borgata 3, sometimes 4 nights a week for, I don't know, 2004 to 2007 or so. And then I would also kind of try to keep my foot in the door with the real job and the writing and stuff like that, because Roto World, they were awesome. They were also paying me $8 an hour, $9 an hour, stuff like that to do news blurbs, and that was okay with me because I had poker. Once the game started to get tougher, and my win rate started to go down, especially at higher stakes, it was I need to figure something else out. And so I actually almost just gave up everything, gave up fantasy and poker. And I took the GMAT to maybe go get an MBA in something and maybe bet on stocks instead of, playing poker or fantasy or whatever. But then, as it kind of got closer to 2012, 2013, I started hearing about this DFS stuff. And like, I mean, if you looked at it, the lobby looked just like a poker lobby. You could play heads up, you can play against 10 people, you can play against 1,000 people, you can play for $1, you can play for 10K, you can play for whatever you want. And it was just like poker. And I was like, oh man, this is it. I couldn't believe it was legal, but I immediately knew that like if it was legal, like this was it, and there was going to be real money in fantasy then, and I didn't have to kind of give up my soul or whatever to kind of stick in the gambling world. So yeah, I mean, once DFS happened, I knew that like that was going to be a kind of a life changer.
Yeah. No, I wish I was as sharp as you at that time because I was still like just stuck in poker and I was just kind of just doing that for fun. Um, yeah, because the landscape changed real quickly. Adam, I wanted to ask you because like one of the first things that stood out to me when I started listening to your podcast, especially like when you were covering, the games or blurbs on what a beat writer was saying or a coach was saying, you were so good. And at first I was kind of like not putting too much weight into what you're saying, but you're very good at deciphering the news and like knowing what's true, what's not. And I think there is correlation with, trading, right? A company might come out and say something and a lot of times it's BS. It might be real. I want to just ask you like how you developed that skill. And I assume a lot of that came just from Roto World, right?
Yeah. And also I got to cover actual teams. I had my journalism degree and I had actually covered the Sixers and the Phillies for like brief. And I use the word, I wasn't very good at it, but you would go to these press conferences and there'd be, 20 guys around who are asking the coach questions. And, the coach doesn't really want to be there. The coach is just saying what won't make a headline. He doesn't want to make a big splash. So if you ask the coach, like, hey, how's Jody Meeks progress something, like, what do you think he's going to say? He's not going to say, oh man, Jody Meeks sucks, we're not going to put him on the floor. Well, of course he's not going to say. He's going to say Jody's making great progress and we're so happy with Jody. You know what I mean? And so he didn't actually believe that, but he said it. I mean, it was clear to anybody that Jody wasn't really like a full-time NBA starter. So coaches are gonna be led in the direction. They're gonna say positive things. And they're gonna try not to make a headline. And so if you think about some of these headlines that come out now on Twitter or on newspapers, you can just go back and listen to it and see that the coach was led down a direction or he didn't want to say anything bad. And a lot of times it's just straight BS. I'm so much more interested in actually seeing with actions. You can say that Jody Meeks is good, but if the Sixers go give $60 million to a shooting guard, well, obviously they think Jody Meeks is not their starter, right? So like actions are going to be way more important than the words that these guys say.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, JJ, it's like, I think about it like with some of these CEOs, right? Like what do they expect? What do you expect them to say about their companies? Right. Like, oh yeah, we're in financial trouble, blah, blah, blah. No, like, oh, hey, like we're raising money because X, Y, and Z. It's like, okay.
We're always exploring strategic alternatives.
Right. Right. The kind of like a follow-up question to this, it's similar with the trading, this could be a concept that is tricky, right? Like, knowing when to deviate from, like, let's say maybe like what might be optimal based on new data, right? Like we always, or not new data, but we want to be data driven analysis. But, I think the key is like knowing when to deviate from the data. I know this could be very nuanced, but do you have any like general advice for the listeners?
Yeah, I think, when DFS first started, if you had a reasonably good projection system, I mean, that was enough to print off, 20, 30, 40% ROI. I mean, that was enough, because you weren't being biased like everyone else. I mean, everyone else was making lineups. They look at the game log. They're like, oh, this guy sucked for the last 2 weeks. I'm not going to play him this week. Well, obviously, like if you're using any type of model that regresses further back than 2 weeks, you're going to understand better what a guy's outlook is. And maybe there were some other contributing factors in those last 2 games why he played poorly. Now I think that everybody, especially for NFL and NBA, like I think we have the best projections by a pretty wide margin. That's like table stakes now to have really, really good projections that you're working off of. I think the key now is to kind of figure out beyond that, and people are using distributions and simulations and ceiling outcomes and all kinds of more advanced stuff beyond just the baseline projection. And correlation is obviously like something that's really huge, especially in football. And so people are going beyond baseline projections now to kind of raise the level of play. And just as any market matures, it's going to get tougher and tougher. We've seen it with everything. Every market is going to get more mature and tougher over time. And it's no different in DFS. I think there's still a lot of money to be won in DFS, but of course, like you always have to be getting better. And that's not like a knock, that's like anything you want to do in life, especially if you're playing for a lot of money, figuring out the next thing is going to be what you have to do.
Figuring out the next thing. Yeah. And it seems, especially with football, I mean, football's so popular. Everyone thinks, and I know you talk to this too, like every guy at the bar thinks he knows like the best teams. And it seems like there's still it doesn't seem like it's like poker where it's like it's going to shrink to almost nothing. There still seems like there's a good future. I mean, especially with sports betting here as well.
Man, I gotta say, I'm feeling like a poker renaissance, like another boom. Like I think the World Series of Poker is going to break records this year. They got like 1,500 people for 08 event while I was there, and they were expecting around 100 people for the 25K. They got like 250 people for the 25K. I think people are either still too rich, or like a lot of the crypto bros, they made a lot of money but not enough to retire, and now they're back to poker, and so they still have enough money to play the 25K, but they don't have enough money to like never play poker again. So yeah, I think poker is actually having like a bounce back for sure. In terms of fantasy, yeah, like of course, like season-long fantasy football is going to be popular like till the end of time because it's so social. You play with your friends, you play with your people from work. I think DFS is under some threat from sports betting, for people who are at the bar, who are, don't want to put the work in to be good at DFS, they can take a 50-50 shot on a side, if you bet on Sunday, Giants -3, there's a good chance you're just getting it in 50-50 minus the rake, because the lines are so efficient by the time Sunday comes. And so they're flipping and they're going to, lose their 10% over the long run. And maybe that's a better outcome for them if they don't want to put the work in for DFS. I think there's a really good community of DFS people that will sustain it for a really, really long time. And it's just so fun. And the prizes are so big. And, anytime you give people a chance to turn a little bit of money into a lot, which is what a lot of these DFS tournaments are, turn 20 into $1 million. People understand how unlikely it is, but they still want to take a shot on it. And, football is just like you said, football is something that everybody thinks they're really know really well and are really good at. So yeah, I'm actually pretty optimistic, actually long-term about both poker and DFS.
Yeah. It's funny. I was talking to, we had Brett Ritchie on last week. He was playing the WSOP, and he was saying that too, how the resurgence, we were talking about this, like the resurgence, especially of like live poker in these tournaments. I think it's just kind of like the I don't want to say the society we're in, but like you look at like the Wall Street bets and GME GameStop bit, like people are gambling it up on options. People are gambling up in the crypto market. Sports betting's legal. I think gaming is just on the rise here. And I've noticed even like a lot of younger kids are getting into poker, playing poker. So maybe it's like, something, more encouraged in society.
Oh, I think it's generational, like I've never played blackjack in my life. I've never played roulette. Like it makes me sick to like actually walk by these people that are just constantly, every time they put money out, they're just losing money regardless of the outcome. I actually feel like ill for them, but I think a lot of people in my generation feel that way. And these peer-to-peer games where we can work harder, be smarter, hopefully, and win is like what appeals to our generation and younger generation. Like I can't fathom anyone in my generation pulling a slot machine. I just can't see it, so yeah, I think that those peer-to-peer games are a generational thing. Like that's what our generation wants.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I think the data backs that up as well, if I'm not mistaken. So for the listeners who aren't familiar with DFS and JJ here as well, player ownership is a huge deal when we're playing like GPPs, their tournaments. I guess to like sum it up, like you want to have a lone owned player relative to the field who's going to have a chance of having a good performance. Now it's more nuanced, but I guess that's kind of like the gist of it. Adam, I think this is related to trading in a sense as well. Several traders we've talked to have talked about the importance of being contrarian, but not just being contrarian for the sake of being contrarian. I know there's a lot of nuance here, but how do you approach being contrarian in DFS?
I mean, it's the hardest thing in anything to do, right? Is to both be contrarian and be right. 99 people think one thing and you're the one who doesn't, and you're right. Like, man, that's really hard to do. But think about, what do you win when you win? So if I play Tom Brady and I'm in a 100-person tournament and 70 other people have Tom Brady, what do I win when Tom Brady has 400 yards and 4 touchdowns? I win nothing. Like literally, like it's so hard for me to win money because I'm competing against all these other teams that also had Tom Brady. But let's say Tom Brady fails and I'm the only one with, Aaron Rodgers in the whole tournament, and Aaron Rodgers beats Tom Brady by 20 points. All of a sudden I've iced a majority of the field and now I'm hardly competing with anyone. to get first place. And so, yeah, in these tournaments, they're so top heavy. Having low owned players is almost a necessity. And yeah, it's just for casual people, it's just a hard thing for them to wrap their head around. I think people like to lose together, like, oh, everybody played Tom Brady, so I'm not the village idiot, right? And I'm sure it's the same way in trading, like, oh, everybody was buying, Coinbase at $250 or whatever. I'm going to lose with all my friends, and we're gonna make excuses and everything, and it's harder to be out there on an island for sure. But I would just encourage people to think about, what do you win when you win.
Yeah, and it's great advice. And I try talking to people like in our trading room, and I guess it is hard sometimes when people because you do come from playing poker. I play DFS, just football, but it's like same thing in a trade. It's like, it's okay, like if you lose a little bit, lose it, like took a small loss, but when you're right, you're winning 5, 10, 15x, whatever it is. I mean, it doesn't matter how many times you lose. Exactly. It's all about the ROI there. And I got a question, Adam, from one of my boys, DFS grinder. I need money. He wanted to ask you about ownership projections versus actual ownership.
Yeah.
Sometimes differing a lot or a little bit. Like what are the factors that are going to contribute to that?
Oh man, I mean, we put so much work into getting ownership projections right, because it's so important, and we track our R squared versus actuals, our projected ownership versus actuals, and I think we've gotten really, really good at it. And a lot of it is understanding who is influencing the market, and obviously, like, our actual projections influence the market a lot, but there's other people out there that influence too, and so we're basically trying to gauge how much other people are influencing the market and using what they have to figure out what ownership is going to be. Hope that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, a lot of this is just market sentiment. And as people, it's easier to do good ownership projections as more and more people are using projections to make their lineups, right? When people are just like taking a dump and clicking buttons, it's hard to project what they're going to do. But when people are building through projections, it's much, much, much easier to project what they're going to do. And so, yeah, I think that ownership projections are getting really, really good for all sports, and it's just so important for sure.
So it gets a little bit meta, a little bit like that's interesting. That's got to make it a little bit difficult, I would think.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially for sports that like we dominate, like preseason football and USFL, and when XFL was around. I mean, it was tough to play the guys that we projected well, because that's what everybody was doing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it definitely creates a meta, like you said.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I that's why I think it's so fast. The game theory, just like even beyond just the projections, but the game theory in daily fantasy, I think is so intriguing. And it changes week to week. But yeah, that's another topic. That's awesome. And on just the projections front, I didn't realize how much I was torching money, Adam, until I did sign up with you guys to get the projection. Like, it's a game changer. It's total. You're torching money, I think, if you're not looking at projection totals, right? I'd imagine.
So I think that, like I said, I think if you're building straight off projections now, that's table stakes. It's not enough. But if you don't know what the projections for these baselines for these guys are, like, you're just dead. You know what I mean? So like,
done. Yeah.
You need to have really good projections in order to do all the stuff off of that. And so, it's, and also, like, if you're not doing projection based stuff, like when I won, or I got second in the FanDuel thing last year, like, it would never cross my mind to play Rex Burkhead if we weren't doing projections. But Rex Burkhead was projecting really well for us due to matchup, due to share of his team's carries, due to implied team total, and all these stuff that goes into our model. I mean, again, if I was sitting on the toilet, there's no way I would ever click Rex Burkhead, but you can see it when you do projections. And so, and also, you can see we had a really good value projection on Rex Burkhead, and we had projected ownership at like 4%. And anytime there's that, like, I'm really interested in tournaments. And so, I think it's just incredibly important to be looking at some form of projections.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's great. Like the past few years when I've subscribed to your guys' stuff, you start getting like a feel, like the more and more data you look over, you get like a better feel for things as well. But always coming from a data centric focus. Speaking of your GPP win, going deep and having a shot is an exhilarating feeling. Now, I've had some deep runs at them, but not even close to yours. I don't play the same stakes as you do. Very reminiscent of like a poker tournament, that feeling when you're going deep. The difference with poker, you at least have some control, right? Like we're not controlling the players. How was the sweat watching the game when you're, you're deep in a tournament like that?
See, I don't think it's like poker at all. I mean, once 1 o'clock hits on Sunday, pretty much the decisions are done, and it just let it play out. And a lot of people don't even watch the games. They'll just like check in, after everything's over and see how they did. Obviously, going deep in a poker tournament is so much more exhilarating, and it's so much more of a adrenaline rush because you're in there, you're making decisions, you're battling, you get it in and you're never in, you never have anyone drawing dead, so you have to sweat it or whatever. It's so different in DFS. You're just sitting there watching football and hoping that the right things happen for your team. I had, I knew the team that I had was doing really, really, really well. I knew that I needed one more catch from Jamar Chase on the last drive to get another 750K. And that was stressful because Joe Burrow dropped back a couple times and looked at Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase was covered and he went somewhere else, which was tough to swallow. But yeah, I mean, I've been kind of gambling for so long that that stuff doesn't phase me too much. I wasn't like kicking my dog and melting down. It just kind of is what it is. And it kind of feels better than poker. Like it's really much harder to second guess yourself in DFS than it is in poker. In poker, I constantly like second guess if what I did was right. In DFS, you can second guess yourself, but at least it's not like in the moment. It's not like the equities aren't the same, like the equity of me playing Tyler Boyd over Jamar Chase would have been 750K, but like I never would have done that before the slate started anyway. So, it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah. I asked the question because I was in, it must've been last year. And it was one of those fucking London games. I'm playing a showdown on the London game. And I'm like, there's like seconds on the clock and like Gardner Minshew's playing. I forget whatever team he's on. He wasn't even starting that year. Maybe it was Jacksonville before he went to the Eagles. And Minshew's like, he's driving down. The game's already over, and I'm fluctuating between first and fifth. And like it's like a play at the end where I'm in first, and they, instead of ruling it incomplete, it's the last play of the game, they ruled it a fumble. And then everyone with the defenses moved up. I finished in fucking 15th. And so, the money wasn't crazy. It was like 5K, but then I go from 5K to fucking 100 or something. I'm like, yo, fucking tilt. But I
mean, that's the way DFS goes. I mean, especially in showdown. I mean, it's just half a point is everything.
It's all exactly. Adam, the popularity of best ball through the roof right now. I get it. I mean, it's a lot of fun having to sweat through the season. The drafting, I enjoy the drafting of it. With best ball being relatively new, not too much data to really, I guess, analyze. I saw what Jack Miller posted. That was phenomenal, by the way. How big of an edge do you think there is in best ball?
The edge is big, much like anything large field. Realizing your edge is always going to be hard, and so the tournaments now on Underdog and DraftKings, are 400,000 people, like the flagships. You can have a really big edge there and never realize it. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't play, because obviously the edge is really big. I mean, there's people getting it in really, really bad in best ball right now, not understanding the correlation needed to win some of these tournaments. People that are just, drafting off the seat of their pants. And so, best ball, this is pretty much like, I think the third year that best ball has been pretty popular. This is the biggest one by far. And tying up money for this long is hard, especially if you think you can make money on your money. But I don't think that 15, 20, 30% ROI or EV expectation on each dollar you put into best ball right now is an unrealistic expectation if you're good and you know what you're doing.
Nice. And what do you think about because I've been thinking a lot of this myself. Like when I was playing poker, I'm mainly like a cash game guy. So that's kind of like more of my mindset. And I've been thinking with these, I definitely want to play some of these tournaments, these best ball tournaments, but is it best for me like to put some like maybe in more like the sit and goes, like to have an allocation to sit and goes? Or is it more or less kind of like, moving on, like, because you got to win your 12-man league to move on, or is it essentially similar? I haven't really done much work on this. I want to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, my concern with the sit and goes is that's not where like the soft players, where the weak players are, and they all want to turn a little money into a lot. And so they're all playing the tournaments. I haven't looked at the lobbies for just the regular 4-mans or 10-mans. I would guess that they're much, much tougher than the tournaments, but yeah, I don't think they're unbeatable by any sense. And if you're trying hard and you're good, I think that you could certainly achieve the similar, 10, 20, 25% ROI in some of those. It's just, again, like, are you willing to tie up money for the next 9 months? It's kind of a tall ask. You guys are obviously familiar with markets and stuff. I assume you guys think, you can get 6, 8, 10% hopefully on markets. And so trading, and that's compounding, this isn't even compounding at all.
Yeah. No, exactly. But best ball is fun. I want to, at least get in there for the fun.
It's so fun. Drafting is the best part of fantasy. That's why people love it. Trading and waivers and setting your lineup, all that stuff's annoying. Drafting is the best part of fantasy by far, and that's why it's so popular. Drafting is the best.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've been noticing too, like I don't do those like slow drafts anymore, because like the fast drafts, these people will be freaking out sometimes.
Right.
Like the 30-second timers, you'll see, like, I'm used to like multi-tabling poker, like, you know what I'm saying? I can make a quick decision. Like some of these people are out there just freaking out. So it's nice. When I first heard about the idea of stacking week 17, Adam, I was a bit resistant to the idea. Just so many studies on how bad humans are at predictions. Just from like, psychology, et cetera. But when I saw the stuff you guys put out with Jack, like the data, it was pretty compelling argument. What are kind of like your thoughts around this?
Yeah. So you're trying to reduce the number of things you need to get right. So let's say your big take this year is that, Daniel Jones is going to be a top 5 quarterback this year. Well, you can reduce the number of ways to get that right. You don't just take Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones has a huge year, it's likely that also Saquon Barkley, Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, so these guys are also going to have big years. So by correlating your players together, you reduce the number of things you get right. So Giants have a big offensive year, you're automatically like way ahead of the field, and you don't try to hit, an 18 player parlay, where you have to pick off, the best play at each spot. It's like, oh, Daniel Jones has a huge year, so are all the rest of the Giants. So I would recommend that people draft in best ball as if they're right. Like if you draft a guy, assume that he's going to hit the top range of his outcome, because that's what you need to win anyways. Otherwise, you're just dead. And so if you assume that your quarterback has a huge year, or if your wide receiver has a huge year, if you think Devontae Adams is going to go for 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns, well, you better get Derek Carr on your team too, because he's going to outperform expectation. Also, in terms of the week 17 stuff, we're talking about a 470 person final on Underdog. In order to beat 470 people, you're going to have to be correlated almost certainly. Like it's going to be really hard to just have the exact right combo of players. What you can do is say, hey, when it gets to week 17, Russell Wilson is going to have a huge game, and that's going to force the opponents to be really pass heavy. And so if you have a bunch of receivers in that game that the Broncos playing in week 17, well, all of a sudden you've only gotten one thing right. Russ has a huge game, but you bring along all the players involved also. And so the bigger the field gets, the more I think correlation and game stacking makes sense. And yeah, this 470 person final on Underdog, it's a big field, man. It's going to be, even if you get there, which is really, really hard to get there, but that's where all the money is. Like getting 480th place, even getting 300th place, getting 200th place is like no money. All the money is in the top 3, top 5. And so you should be optimizing your lineups for those spots.
Yeah, right. And you could do it too, where you're not like reaching, right? Like it's not, you're not going too far out of like the value range. And I think I was listening to Leone, like his last podcast, and I like what the guest was saying is he's almost using it as like his randomizer. Like he might be at a spot where it might be close between 2 players. He might go with the guy in week 16 or week 17 who he has matched up with, Jerry Jeudy or something. And I thought that made a lot of sense too. And also the help from an exposure standpoint. That's what I love about it. A lot of game theory
yeah.
in this. A lot of fun.
Oh yeah. I mean, think about how hard it is to be on a 30-second clock and also be
Yeah.
trying to think about your mini stacks in week 17 and also your correlation. I mean, it's definitely a lot to think about when you're doing these drafts. It's definitely deep.
Yeah, well, I love it. Like I got like the week 17 schedule up. I got your guys' projections right there. You know, it's great. I definitely. How do you balance with the projections? Because there's definitely like you guys are definitely higher on certain players, right? Significant on the ADP. You know, I find myself always get into some guys where it's like they're always falling to me. Any tips on maybe balancing it a little bit, or like, are you kind of one like that's like, all right, now I'm just going all in with him.
No, I think you don't want to be overconfident in individual player takes. You know,
Yeah.
just because we have a guy ranked 5 spots higher than someone else or 10 spots higher than someone else. I mean, that doesn't mean that 100% of the time the guy higher is going to outscore the other guy. And so I think that not getting too concentrated makes sense. That said, it's so early. I mean, it's June. By the time August comes, I think that the field will be more in tune with where we're at, most likely. And so this is like your chance to stack up guys that were ahead of market on. And then when August comes, you might not get any of that guy because his ADP has gone up so much, And so, yeah, I think it cuts both ways. But yeah, guys were higher on the market. I certainly want to start allocating a bunch of now. And then as their ADP rises, and hopefully you're just getting closing line value, like we had Aaron Jones as a top 15 guy. He was going in the 30s. By the time August comes, I mean, Aaron Jones is going to be going in the top 18 or so for sure. And at that point, maybe I'm like, okay, I'm not going to take any more Aaron Jones. I already have a ton of him at the, late second round or whatever.
Yeah, I already feel like he's getting steamed up already.
Yeah,
And,
sure.
and I saw him last night. I swear, he got picked 4 yesterday in the draft I did.
That's a little
nuts.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's nuts. That's nuts. A little bit about sports betting here, Adam. Are the books losing some of the edge that they once had?
So it depends what market you're talking about. I think there's a lot of people out there that'll tell you they're beating NFL sides and totals and NBA sides and totals. I would say most of them are just liars. I mean, the market is incredibly efficient, and obviously you are laying minus 110 on all these bets, and so it's really, really hard to beat those markets. Obviously, winning at props is not rocket science. I mean, we're winning at an incredible rate at props. It's hard to get money down, man. And so the way the books compensate for that is just limit people's accounts, pull markets off when certain people bet them. And so that's the way they're compensating for it. I think, DraftKings, I think Jason Robbins came out during the investor call or whatever they call it. And, he said, we want to raise our hold percentage. And, that's hard to do. Basically, I mean, what he's insinuating is that they're just not going to let anybody sharp bet because the margins in sports betting are not that high, even a stone cold donkey, if he's betting on Sundays, is, like I said, is going to be like a coin flip. And so, yeah, you're going to collect the juice in the long term, and that's great, but you're also going to have some sharp people in there that are maybe only losing 1% or 2%. Then you'll have some people that are winning, 2 or 3%. I mean, the best sports bettors in the world are only winning, at 2 or 3%, but they're all in incredible amounts of volume. If they make it impossible to get that volume, well, then sharp people aren't going to play at the book anymore. And so I think that's what Jay Robbins was trying to say, stop sharp people from coming in and just, collect the 10% from a bunch of smaller bettors. You're not going to have as much volume that way because you're cutting out everybody who wants to bet 4 or 5, 6 figures on games. But it's a complicated business model for sure. And I think Wall Street's like figuring that out. I mean, DraftKings stock, you guys know better than me. I think it went from like 75 or whatever to 14 in not that long of a period. And I think the way that it's solved for them is not through sports betting. It's through turning sports bettors into iCasino players. In other words, you get guys on there and then they start blasting off on roulette and blackjack. And that's where you turn into a business that's worth 20, 30 billion. Just sports, I think is not enough for DraftKings. I mean, I'm no stock guy. I have no idea, but it's not enough, I think, for DraftKings to be worth more than, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 billion or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of those deals too. I mean, a lot of those deals have a lot of dilution, right? The company insiders give themselves a lot of free stock and dilute the float. That's why, that's why they just crater.
Yeah. Oh, you mean when the insiders sell, you mean?
Well, when the insiders sell, there's also something that people for some reason have no clue about it, and it boggles my mind. Something called an S8, which is a employee benefit share, and these companies just have been abusing it over and over and over again. We're talking like hundreds of millions of shares that come out at zero cost or near zero cost. So if somebody gives you 100,000 shares of stock and it's $14, you sell it. You don't care if it's 14 or
Mhm.
10 or 5. You sell it at whatever you can get for it, and that's very dilutive to the other shareholders. It's very common in U.S. capital markets.
Yeah. You know, what's funny? I like not like a very tiny amount, but when my deal with DraftKings, I got some like stock options. This was in 2015. And then
Mm,
when they went public, whatever it was last year, I just like never, I was like, well, I'm not going to sell. Like, I didn't know anything about markets. I was like, hey, I'm not going to sell. So I was like the only idiot, like holding the bag as like,
yeah.
it just like cratered. I just, like you said, like I should have just been like, oh, I got this free stock. I should just sell it. I shouldn't have been greedy, but I was like, oh, maybe it'll go up. I just had
Yeah.
no idea, and I just rode it right into the ground.
And it's what these guys do. I mean, you look at some of these companies, they'll like all these Wall Street darlings. You look at the dilution where these executives, everyone's all of a sudden a quote unquote consultant. Like the CEO's girlfriend is a consultant, and the lady who cleans his mother's house is a consultant, and they're kicking back. They're what we call rat holes, right? You put stock in people's names, they sell it and kick it back to you, and it happens all the time. Nobody likes to talk about it, or nobody likes to admit that it's true. But yeah, as soon as somebody gives you stock, and I've been doing this 30 years, as soon as somebody gives you free stock, make sure you sell it. That
Yeah.
you won't make that mistake again.
I could have used that
Because
advice a year ago. Yeah.
and it's not a big deal because it's paper's 15 cents a pound. They'll just issue you more. It's
Right.
yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Adam, I was talking with Brett Ritchie last week on some like Web3 betting, potentially emerging from all
Mhm.
this peer-to-peer betting. What are your thoughts on this? Do you see that maybe becoming a popular thing in the future?
The problem with peer-to-peer embedding is always going to be liquidity. Like why should I go out there and post my numbers for every game when like I'm not incentivized to do so at all because I'm not getting that 10% vig, right? Like I can just get picked off if I'm not at my computer when LeBron James gets ruled out. Well, then everybody's just going to pick off what I have up there in the peer-to-peer exchange, and I'm dead. And I wasn't even getting the 10% anyways. So like, how can you incentivize people to post to make the market? It's hard. I think the Uniswap model, I don't know if you guys are into, the crypto and Uniswap stuff at all. I'm not deep in it at all, but I think there's like some merit in that model where I think they're just like making the market, but they're charging slippage and they're charging fees, and they're making their cut for making the market. I think there's some validity in that, but for the common people, people not looking to bet a lot, people like, why wouldn't they just go on DraftKings and bet? Like, why is that worse for them than some peer-to-peer exchange?
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. Do you think any of these books are they subscribing to sites like yours? Yeah, for sure.
Oh, we know that there's people from multiple different books that are in our Discord waiting for us to
I
get
figured.
props. Yeah, I
That's
mean,
crazy.
obviously it's not expensive to subscribe to the site, and these guys can lose a lot of money if they keep props up that we're about to bet and stuff like that. And so yeah, they're in there. They're in there for sure. We've been tipped off a few times to guys from books being in there, and there's not too much that we can do. Honestly, it's kind of up to people to find outs and find accounts. I mean, there's millions and millions of, or I should say, hundreds and hundreds of books all over the world. It's not,
Mhm.
your options aren't only DraftKings and FanDuel. And we always encourage people to have money on as many different books as possible, so that if somebody is in there from Caesars and they take the market down before we can bet it, that they can go bet it on Fox, or they can go bet it on Pinnacle, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's tough. I've been jealous of you guys because I'm in Florida. It was good last year. I had the Hard Rock
Hmm.
app, but that got shut down. The lines were good on there. Because I got money because I got money on Bovada, so I
Hmm.
just but the lines aren't always as good.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Are there any offshore stuff I'm overlooking from Florida?
Yeah, it's hard for me to recommend the offshore stuff just because, like, God, I mean, they can just take your money and you have no recourse whatsoever. Like Bovada could go under tomorrow and you would have no recourse whatsoever. I do think that Pinnacle and Chris are probably the two that are most reputable, but I don't think they post props until like Sunday morning for NFL games. It's just hard, and so yeah,
Yeah.
for props, it's not great offshore for sure.
Yeah, no, it's tough because it was great. Like when I had the Hard Rock, it was easy, quick. They posted the lines early, and like I see when you guys posted in the Discord, and I'm sitting there waiting, and Bovada doesn't have it up until Saturday night, or maybe sometimes a little bit earlier. It makes it a little bit tougher. Got to be a little more choosy, I guess, with the props I take.
I think in Florida, isn't Underdog and Prize Picks there? Because I mean, you can definitely, they have those props up. You have to parlay them, but I mean, you can definitely beat those guys on their pick'em stuff.
Yeah, I never looked yet. I mean, I play best ball on Underdog, but I never looked at. I was under the impression it's not like straight up props, is it?
Correct. It's straight up props, but you have to parlay them. They only accept parlays. So yeah, and the parlay payouts aren't great, but the lines are so soft, you can definitely beat it.
That's right. I've seen you guys have the projections for those on the site, I think, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll have to take a look at those. You've had Jason Strasser on your podcast.
Oh, the best. Yeah.
Yeah. He's the man, former poker player as well. So I assume you have at least a slight interest in trading and investing. What's been the scope of trading and investing for you?
Yeah. I'm not very good at it. I never sell, man. That's the thing. Like I just, I've had some really good run-ups, including with crypto, and I just never sell. Yeah, so I wouldn't call myself a trader. I would call myself like a buyer and wait for it to go up, and then I wait for it to go down. I just, yeah, that's been the extent of it. I think lately I've just been like, hey, listen, I'm just gonna put some money in VOO or VTI and just like check back in 10 years, and I think that's the extent of like my investment thesis right now is like being in the market is good, staying in the market is good, and I don't want to be out there like trying to make decisions about individual stocks because I just it's just not me, like I'm a really firm believer in, have all your eggs in one basket and watch it really closely, and all my eggs are in the business and playing DFS, and I don't really think about anything else, and so. It'd be unfair to guys like you guys or whatever to, call myself some kind of trader. So yeah, I think for me, it's just to buy some index funds and check back when I can hopefully retire in 10 or 20 years or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's some good advice. That's some good advice, right, Jay?
Definitely. And I was reading today that what the Broncos sold for what, $4.6 billion.
Yeah. The most expensive.
And pretty amazing. The Wall Street Journal said that one of the reasons is the NFL or have these media deals that are worth over 100 billion. And it's quite interesting. It says the rise of legalized sports betting is also expected to grow the league's business even further in the coming years. I thought that was very, very fascinating stuff since you were coming on the podcast.
Oh man. I mean, you guys would be, I don't even know if it's public or not, but like the amount that DraftKings and FanDuel pay these leagues to be like the official fantasy partner or the official betting partner of their league is out of control. Yeah. And not to mention that so many people are going to consume the product. I mean, how many people would watch Jaguars versus Titans on Thursday night if they weren't betting on it? And so now that it's been legalized, like the ratings are going to be through the roof. The TV deals are going to keep going up. Yeah, I couldn't agree more that, gambling is going to make these leagues and teams worth more.
It's just fascinating, the numbers that are being thrown around now. Just absolutely amazing. I mean, the last team sold for what, $2.3 billion, and this is double.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Wild. Well, I mean, from listening to Adam's podcast and seeing it, I mean, it seems like you guys have grown very big as well. I'm sure you guys are seeing it, just the popularity of all this.
Yeah, I mean, we came into the business with a pretty big audience already. We've been growing pretty well, but yeah, it's people want betting content is the bottom line. And like we if we went out there and said we're gonna sell a bunch of picks like Broncos -3 and stuff, and we'd make an unfathomable amount of money, but we can't do it because we can't beat those markets, and so it'd be really disingenuous for us to to do exactly what the people want. If we really wanted to grow, though, we would just go out there and go full Vegas Dave and say, hey, bet Broncos -3 today, and hopefully it works out. But like that's not what we're gonna do, because I know we're not beating that market, and the overwhelming majority of people who say they aren't either. But that's what people want. I mean, people want the winning picks on just sides, because it's so easy to just fire that up and bet it. It's not a lot of work like fantasy is.
Yeah. But you guys are doing it the right way. You're doing it with integrity. I know Jason. I've seen Jason Strasser on Twitter with some of these guys. It's like the same thing in the trading industry. You got these people who are like, oh, hey, just follow me. These picks right here, you're gonna be rich. It's fugazi. It's not real. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I asked him personally, like on the side, like not on the podcast. I was like, hey man, like I have X amount of money. Like what should I buy? And he's like, honestly, man, like I can't even, like, I don't even want to say, because like, it's not, picking winners in stocks is just as hard, if not harder. And so he was like, just buy some index funds and forget about it.
Yeah. There you go. Adam, I know you own some Zed Run horses, or at least, or at least one. I got a bunch myself. You guys are the 3 donkey stable. I'm pretty sure I ran against one of the horses a few times. But do you own any other NFTs? I know you got some funny NFT takes.
Yeah, no, I never got into NFTs. I thought punks were really cool, and I've had a couple crypto punks, and I still have one actually that's currently buried. But anyways, yeah, I the PFP projects. In other words, like I'm going to put out 10,000 cartoons of a toad, and people are going to use it as their avatar, and it's worth 100K. Like I always thought that was like the stupidest shit in the entire world. I could not believe what was going on there. I do think that like use case stuff for blockchain technology like Zed does is like the dream. I mean, the technology is so powerful, and yeah, having a Zed horse is like owning an actual racehorse. Like it's actually awesome. And you don't necessarily feel like you're on the blockchain all the time, which is, I think, important for mass adoption. And so, yeah, that's the only real NFTs that I've had is the horses and the punks. And I took a piece of some Bale's Top Shots too, which are also just completely buried. So yeah, it hasn't been going great.
Dust. I know. I know. I wish I would have sold mine too. I actually sold all my Top Shots, and I moved into the NFL ones. All
day, yeah.
For the one time, we'll see. I just bought up all the rookies. I brought a bunch of Jamar Chase.
Mm-hmm.
What's I got? I went Elijah Moore. All the what's his name? Tight end. Pitts.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see from there. All right, Adam. We're gonna wrap it up here. I got some like miscellaneous, like rapid fire type of questions.
Sure.
For you right here. Just for for the audience, for listeners, do you have any tips and suggestions on handling downswings?
Yeah, it's tough, man. I think knowing when you're a favorite in a game still is a hard thing to know. Like I was playing a lot of 10-10 at Parks in Philly, and I had a certain win rate for a long time. And if you're tracking your win rate, game conditions change. Like certain people leave the game, certain people get better. Maybe I wasn't getting better, and like being honest with yourself and understanding that's different than getting unlucky for a while and losing. And so like if you can step back and evaluate why you're in a downswing, is it actually just random luck? Are you still playing well, or have game conditions changed? It's really hard to do, but I think that's really important. If you think that game conditions have changed, then yeah, it's time to stop it and find a new game if you're no longer a big favorite or a favorite at all. If you think you've just been getting unlucky and you can actually identify mistakes that your opponents are still making, then I would continue to play in the game. So yeah, I would take time. I would sit out and take time to kind of evaluate that if you can.
Yeah, and I think that's applicable to the markets too. Like, it could be a mind fuck. It's like, oh man, is this strategy that I'm implementing not working anymore? Is it just variance? Et cetera, et cetera. What's always struck me about you, Adam, is like you take ownership of your results, like almost like ruthlessly, which is good though. I think it's helped me as well. It's like, because it's so easy when we're in like gambling activities, it's so easy to blame it on variance, and I feel like that's most people. Oh, variance.
Yeah.
But like really looking at yourself and like, what could I do better here? I think like that's something you've always done very well.
Yeah, I mean, people are just always looking for an excuse for why they lost. It was this, it was that, it was this. It's just much easier to just say, "Hey, I didn't play well today, and it's on me. I'm going to play better next time." That's it. Period. And so, yeah, the excuse making and the whining, I can't take it at all. So, yeah, I think it's just a better attitude to have to just be like, "Hey, it's on me. It's nobody else's fault. That's it."
Yep. Yep. When you're out in the real life, Adam, maybe you're at a function or something and people ask you what you do for a living. Like, how do those conversations go?
Oh man, it depends on the person. I try to get a read on the person. If I think that they're, familiar with DFS at all, or familiar with any peer-to-peer type gambling, I'll tell them that, I start businesses around DFS and I play DFS. If it's someone who I probably frowns upon gambling, I say that, I'm in predictive analytics or something like that. It's a varying answer. I never really have a good answer. It's so funny. Anytime anyone asks me, I like pause, I like think for like 10 seconds about what I'm going to say. And like, they're always thrown off by that. Cause most people, when you ask them what they do, there's like a real easy answer. Like, oh, I work for AT&T or something, I don't know. And like, I always pause and like try to think about what is reasonable, because I don't want to like completely blow someone's mind too hard.
Yeah. I usually love when you bring that up on the pods or like the solo pod, because like I 100% relate, because whether it was like when I was just playing poker, that was just weird conversation. I always just dreaded being in social situations and people asking me, "Oh, what do you do?" And then once trading, once that whole AMC, GameStop, and crypto stuff was happening, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, we're traders," and like it made me look like a schmuck to everybody. It was like, "Oh yeah, you're a trade. Oh yeah, okay." It made me look like a fucking schmuck. I'm like,
Yeah. Well, hey, in my day, I had a buddy of mine who was a professional poker player in the 80s. And, when I would go pick him up at games at 3 o'clock in the morning in the back of Chinese restaurants, everybody looked like they were packing heat. It's like, I was like walking in there going, "Oh, who are these characters?" Right? That's completely different now.
Exactly. Yeah. It's definitely more accepted now than it was, but I still think there's definitely some like pretty major stigma attached. So yeah.
Yeah. Nah, it's crazy. Adam, what's been out of all the bits? He has a lot of funny bits, JJ. What's been the most popular one from the fans that you think went over the most well?
Oh God. Every day someone asks me or makes a joke about the penis size model, the PSM, and that was, for those guys that don't know, it was just a joke about like if I'm comparing two players, like whichever one I think has a bigger penis is the one that's gonna play better. And so I would do jokes about we have a model that figures out exactly how big guys' penis is, then we compare those to each other, and that's how we decide who to play. I mean, not a day goes by where someone doesn't mention that to me on Twitter or whatever. So yeah, people really do love that one.
They love the penis. I guess the penis jokes just never get old, huh?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
I like the gender labs, and anytime gender labs comes up, I love that.
Yeah, that was a really popular one too, and people love that. Yeah, for those guys that don't know what that one is, that was basically like we had a company called Fantasy Labs, and then I started doing jokes about a company called Gender Labs, and the idea was, instead of people helping with fantasy, we would help them optimize their sexual positions and stuff like that for what gender of baby they want to have. So we would recommend certain positions for boys and other positions for girls. And people really like that one too. I mean, a lot of people thought I was serious with that, because there is, like, if you Google, there is some like data out there. It's called the shuttles method. There is actual research and data on this. I don't know how predictive it is, but I was just doing it as a joke. But people love that. People love that one too.
Oh, that's great. You don't bring up Jerry too much anymore. Is that just like because it's been done with?
Yeah.
I love like the duck treats. Like when you had a good session, he would be like, "Oh, I guess you could say it."
Yeah, I mean, people love the Jerry bits too. I used to, I mean, I was just absolutely in love with this dog, and I still am, but she's not in the office anymore, so people don't see her as they used to in the background of the shows and stuff like that. But yeah, no, she's here and she's doing good. I just yeah, I guess that bit isn't as popular as some of the other ones, I guess. Maybe I could bring back some Jerry bits though. We'll see.
Yeah, I always loved with the duck treats. I swear to God, I started getting duck treats for my dog after you mentioned it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I should try and get some. They love the duck treats.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, last one here, Adam. I'll let you get on your way. JJ, he's been part of some like very in my opinion, some legendary prop bets.
Cool.
Peer-to-peer prop bets. Adam, what's been your favorite one that you've participated in?
Oh god. Well, the one I won the most money on was Bales doing the 2,400 push-ups in 12 hours. That one, no one thought he could do it, and I knew that he could do it, and so that was the one I won the most money on. That one part wasn't the most fun though. The most fun that I watched was probably 6, 12, 18, 24, where Bales had to do 4 tasks in 24 hours: masturbation, running miles, eating donuts, and drinking beers. That one was the most fun to watch.
That's
The most fun
insane.
one that I
Oh, man.
participated in was when I played Steve Bass, who's former professional tennis player, like on the tour, professional tennis player. He used a frying pan that he bought at Bed Bath & Beyond like a half hour before the match, and I used my tennis racket, and that was a battle. That was probably the most fun one that I actually participated in. But yeah, I love that stuff, man. I mean, that's probably my favorite stuff to do, and hopefully we'll get a lot more of that stuff going.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. That's a lot of fun. I'm glad you brought up that Bales one. I remember when it happened. I forget how many years ago it was, but like hearing like Bales like rationale to like what number he's gonna select to it. It's just so funny that side of the brain never stops, does it? Huh? Like where's the optimizing it? It was
Exactly.
funny, and then just the tasks attached to it. Who came up with that idea, by the way?
I think the Barstool guys actually, like, it was probably something that we heard about it because one of the Barstool guys like did it or tried to do it or something like that. But I don't know where it actually started.
Yeah, incredible. Well, guys, that's going to conclude today's episode of Confessions of a Market Maker. If you guys like this episode, could you please rate and review it for us? If you'd like to join a supportive community of traders, you can go join JJ and myself at microefutures.com. Adam, let the listeners know where they can find you and anything else.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to play fantasy football and play well, like, you have to be on Twitter, and obviously Twitter is free. But like, if you're not on Twitter, that's where all the best information is. And so you can just follow me with my full name at Adam Levitan, and if you do that, you'll get pointed in the right direction to I think actually winning at fantasy football. And the podcast too. I mean, the podcast is free also, and so anybody can just listen to the podcast. Just called Establish the Run is the name of the podcast. And if you find that, I think that's free, and that'll start you down the rabbit hole also.
Yeah, it absolutely will. And I definitely vouch for even just a casual player, listen to it. If you're a trader, the type of concepts he talks to, I think is 100% applicable to trading as well. JJ, parting thoughts?
Oh, great. I'm learning about all this stuff. Ray keeps bringing on these poker guys and gambling guys, and I never ever had any interest in that stuff. And now, I think he's a bit of a bad influence. Now I'm starting to like look into these things. So no, thank you very much for coming in and sharing your knowledge with us. And I look forward to learning more about this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks so much, Adam. So he's Adam Levitan. I'm Paulie Walnuts. He's the Grill at House Street. Make sure you guys using stops.